We now welcome on John Fanta, play-by-play commentator for Fox Sports and Big East Digital Network, also co-host of the Field of 68 podcast, Demetrius and a Splash of Fanta with yourself and former Syracuse legend Demetrius Nichols. John, we're recording this on Thursday, December 17th. I saw on Twitter last night. How are you doing with the snowstorm?
Wow, it really packed a punch in Hoboken, New Jersey, and in the metropolitan area. Carter, it's great to be with you, by the way. I love Bill Walden in your background. I'll tell you what, the snow was something. Big time blizzard in the metropolitan area, but good to be in the clear now. I was just outside. There's a lot of snow on the streets, but overall, all is well now. And thank goodness, because I'll tell you, over a foot in the overnight hours, and fun to get out there and do a little social media in the eye of the storm.
That was awesome. So let's just get into this. So far in the Big East, who's your biggest surprise?
Well, Marquette has to be the biggest surprise because this was a team that was picked to finish sixth in the Big East. And I think that the thought was, well, after Marcus Howard graduates, what are they going to get in terms of scoring? How are they going to score the basketball consistently? Well, they have 5 players averaging 9 or more points per game. They had 5 players in double figures in a win over Creighton. But what I point to with the Golden Eagles is their ability to defend. They're in the top 3 in the Big East in field goal percentage defense, in three-point field goal percentage defense. They've got a +9 rebounding margin, and sometimes people say, oh, rebounding margin doesn't matter as much. It means you're missing more shots. But to me, that matters. They're lengthy. Dawson Garcia and Justin Lewis have provided quite the boost, and they welcomed in the best recruiting class in the Big East. But you know, with recruiting, that can go a million different ways, whether it actually works out for freshmen to come in and live up to expectations. I think that Justin Lewis has been even more impressive than Dawson Garcia, and that's not a slight on Garcia. He's been pretty good too. But when you have the Big East preseason freshman of the year and his teammate, you could argue, is outperforming him, and he's still playing pretty well. Really interesting team, the Marquette Golden Eagles. 2 top 10 wins in 11 days over Wisconsin and over Creighton. They did it in different ways. They had to play Wisconsin in a grinder. They had to beat Creighton in a shootout, and they won both those games. So if you're Steve Wojciechowski, after a weird offseason, you have to redefine the way that you play. This team fits what he's been striving for at Marquette, and I think they're an interesting Big East dark horse.
Who's your biggest disappointment then?
Biggest disappointment is a good question. St. John's has been disappointing to start Big East play. I thought that they would be able to get a win out of their first 2 games. Allowing 97 points to Georgetown is disappointing. This is a Georgetown team that is in total rebuild mode this year, and they made Georgetown look pretty good. And the Hoyas' offense really does not have a steady definition. It looked the part of that, though. It looked very good against St. John's. St. John's is at the bottom of the Big East in three-point field goal percentage defense. They're at the bottom of the Big East in field goal percentage defense. They have really struggled to get stops. They are a disappointment thus far. They have enough talent to beat good teams in the Big East. They have Julian Champagnie, a sophomore, who's leading the conference in scoring to this point. You brought in freshman Posh Alexander, Dylan Adaiwusu. You have a couple impact transfers in Isaiah Moore and Vince Cole. St. John's has some weapons, but I'll tell you, the Red Storm have not been able to find a defensive combination that works, and for that, they've been disappointing.
Okay, so I was super high on Creighton coming into this year, and I still am. But are you concerned at all with Marcus Zagorowski's slower start?
No, I'm not concerned. Coming off an injury, you know, you go through that recovery process, and that was a bad meniscus injury. Marcus Zagorowski's a playmaker, but he has a great knack for being able to score the ball at the same time. I think it takes time to get those two things going totally in sync. And then when you think about the Blue Jays and the fact that Tyshawn Alexander, you know, a very talented player, departs for the NBA draft, you got to reinvent the way that you play a little bit. So for the Jays, you know, this is a team that's a high-octane offensive team, and Marcus Zagorowski's at the forefront of that. He's only going to continue to shine. A little bit of an inconsistent start. He'll be fine. I'm not concerned about that at all.
Yeah, his shooting numbers were a little concerning, but, I mean, they were one free throw away in that Kansas game. I don't see it that concerning. But if you had to take your guess, who's winning this Big East?
Villanova. It's Villanova's until somebody takes it from them. There's just no question about it. They're a complete team. You're talking about two sophomores who we thought they would make a jump, but the jump, I think, is bigger than anybody could have actually predicted. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl looks like a surefire NBA draft lottery pick. He has 18 points against Butler. He's able to hit a 15 to 17-foot jumper. And when you're 6'9", when you're that lengthy and you can provide the versatility and range, it's really, really tough to defend. Justin Moore has also taken a sizable step. He was in double figures in the win over the Bulldogs earlier this week. And what I think of, Carter, is Villanova's so steady because when they go from one point guard to the next, there's no drop-off.
Mm-hmm.
That you go from Ryan Arcidiacono to Jalen Brunson to Colin Gillespie. Gillespie learning from Brunson in 2018 what it takes to win. That's how you run a program.
Yep.
And the Wildcats are the best team in the Big East. They're one of the best teams in college basketball. And so I have to have them at the top spot until someone takes it from them.
So we're recording this before Saturday, the Iowa-Gonzaga game. And the top three teams in college basketball, Baylor, Iowa, Gonzaga, maybe Nova, but do you see anybody beating those top three? I mean, they're powerhouses.
Yeah, and on any given day, any of those teams could lose a game. But do I see, Gonzaga, to me, I'd be downright shocked if they didn't make the Final Four. Mm-hmm. I really would be surprised if they didn't make the Final Four. Iowa could beat Gonzaga this weekend. It's college basketball. But with Iowa, I'm on the train. And here's why. People seem to forget that Jordan Bohannon and Jack Nungy were both hurt last year. Mm-hmm. As a result, Jordan Toussaint, Joe Wieskamp have to take on increased roles. They're benefiting from that. Mm-hmm. Now, they essentially have 7 starters. And in a season with COVID-19 and different things happening, when you have that many options, it makes you so tough to defend. And this is a year where being able to score, I think, when you don't have much time to practice, do you have the individual pieces and parts to score the basketball? Do you have different parts that one guy could lead you with 25 points one night, another guy could lead you with 20 points another night? Iowa has the versatility. Baylor, I think their physicals all get out. I think they're great defensively. I think that Kansas can beat them. Mm-hmm. I do. I think Baylor's a better team right now, but we got to see how things translate as the year goes on. Here's the thing. Iowa's in a real tough league.
Yeah. And
Wisconsin, Illinois can beat them. Sometimes being in a real difficult league can wear you down come March. So for Iowa, the challenge is how do you stay fresh for that most important time of year when you have to go through the Big Ten gauntlet, when you might have to pause due to COVID? This is a year unlike any other. But I do think Gonzaga is the top team in the country, and it's never going to be disputed. Mm-hmm. They've proved it already. I think they'll prove it again this week. Could prove it in a win over Iowa. It's almost sometimes like the WCC is good, but it's not as good as the Big Ten. It's not as good as the Big 12. Gonzaga almost benefits off playing a schedule that's a little bit easier and also loading up their non-conference, so you can't fault them for their strength of schedule. The Zags they're head and shoulders above everybody else in college basketball. They have so much versatility. They defend the hell out of you. Mark Few, he's just consistently one of the best in this sport.
So going back to you were talking about Gonzaga, how it's a benefit for them playing in a weaker conference. In some ways, you see the negative in that where, yes, they build up their non-conference schedule, but you're kind of cruising for those few months in conference play, it feels like, other than the BYU game, which they usually let down on.
Mm-hmm, it's a good point, and I get it. But I do think that there's something to be said about also facing a Big Ten conference where you're potentially facing up to 8 or 9 other NCAA tournament teams. There's wear and tear there. There really is. Now, the good news for the Big Ten is they might have 3 Final Four. They have 3 Final Four contenders. They might have a 4th or 5th because Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois can all be there. They could all be in Indianapolis in the Final Four. It wouldn't surprise any of us. But I do think, Carter, when you know you can hit the level that Gonzaga hits, and you've done it against Kansas, you've done it against West Virginia, you've done it against the best, that never leaves you. So I do not think that it's something that affects them negatively. I think in a year like this, playing games, being able to continue to rack up experience and knowing the level that you can hit when you face the elite teams in the country, they've got the combination of everything going for them. If they beat Iowa on Saturday, it's just going to be another statement for them. I almost think the sport could use an Iowa win because if Gonzaga beats Iowa, they beat Kansas, they beat West Virginia, they beat Iowa. They are the undisputed number 1 overall seed come Selection Sunday.
Yeah, even with a weird loss in the WCC, like there's no way.
Sure. No, I wouldn't move them off that line.
So we've talked about all the big powerhouses. What about so my Duke Blue Devils?
Yeah.
I mean, they got the win against Notre Dame last night, but from the ACC in general, do you see anybody from there competing for the title?
With who?
That's my question. I don't.
Well, I like Florida State. You know, I just think that Scotty Barnes gives them a different dimension as a freshman. Wilkes can hit the 3 ball, and for the Seminoles, what I love about Florida State, Carter, is they are deep, and it's part of who they are. Leonard Hamilton gets a team that sacrifices, you know, I'm going to go out and score 17 or 18. But here's the thing. You know, did that impact their top tier draft picks this past NBA draft? No, it didn't. It didn't impact them. Those guys got picked high, and if you looked at their college averages, you would have been like, "What's there to make of this?" But like Patrick Williams, it wasn't like he had great averages. He's an athletic freak, and all you had to do was understand the fact that he's a great player when you look at his measurables. And when you look at the way that he fit in, Florida State, playing for Florida State, you're not going to get the numbers that a typical top-tier player would get, but Florida State has top-tier players. I think that they could absolutely be the best team in the ACC. I think Virginia is probably one, but the main challenger for me is Florida State. They're not getting enough credit for who they are. They defend so well. Barnes gives them a player that can go above and beyond, create his own shots, make things happen, and he's just a freshman. I think the Noles are primed once again. Florida State is no longer a football school. I know Seminole football fans would be so heartbroken. What their basketball program has done over the last 4 or 5 years has been really, really special.
So, no hope for my Blue Devils?
I don't think that they're the best team in the ACC. I don't. I think that they're a team that's going to find themselves as time goes on. But there's just for Duke. Duke's half-court offense has not been good. It's disjointed.
It's been that way. It's been that way for a long period of the one and done era.
That's problematic. That they come off as a disjointed group of players that if one player goes off, they can ride that player to a win. But I just don't get the sense. And here's the thing. When you don't have a normal offseason and when you have freshmen come in, when you have Jeremy Roach and Jalen Johnson, how can you possibly be connected on the defensive end of the floor? So for Duke, they come off to me as a disjointed team. They put it together against Notre Dame, but there's a lot for them to still get better at.
Yeah, and I want to get your thoughts on Coach K's comments on the whole COVID situation with Alabama coach Nate Oates chirping back at him. Everyone's calling Coach K, he's a sore loser, blah, 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 the back problems, the whole thing. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, let Coach K run his program. And if you're a head coach at another program, you run the program that you have. Coach K has every right to pull his team off the floor. Duke's not governing the sport of college basketball. They govern themselves. If they want to pull out or if they don't want to play games, if they don't want to play non-conference games, they're welcome to make that decision. But I understand what people want to conclude to. I understand what people want to say. And don't get me wrong. Could Mike Krzyzewski's argument, could the heat of the moment contributed to it of losing a second straight game? Of course.
Yes.
Of course it did. Nobody's going to deny that. Coaches say stuff all the time. By the same token, he's making a conscious decision to not play non-conference games, and he feels that that's in the best interest. Now, I look at it as you did travel to South Bend, Indiana. What's the difference of playing another non-conference game? You know what I mean? So it wasn't like this was a seismic move. Only one other non-conference game was on their schedule. But Coach K is welcome to run the program the way he wants to run his program. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend. Has he said things sometimes that get questioned? Yeah. Has Nick Saban? Of course. But coaches say stuff. So what did I make of it? He's if he wants to pull his team out or wants to do stuff with his team, not play due to COVID-19, he's welcome to it. But like when people say to me, is this going to lead to college basketball shutting down or pausing? Why? Why would you pause? Pausing does you no good. Everybody talks about how the vaccine is an end-all be-all, or that we need the vaccine to keep playing. We don't know when everyone's going to be able to access that vaccine. We have ideas of when people might be able to, but we don't know. It's going to be months till that happens. Why would you push the season back or pause the season back and then leave yourself with less time to complete games? Right now, about 80% of games are getting played. Of course, you want 100. We always knew that there would be pauses. We always knew that there would be stoppages. There's going to be a fight to get all the way to March or April Madness, whatever it might be, but give yourself more time. Don't eliminate the window.
Yeah, you mentioned that the March-April Madness. You think that no matter what, this tournament's happening unless something catastrophic, right?
Yeah, no matter what. I mean, there will be a March Madness. There's no doubt in my mind there will be a March Madness if it's in April. Come hell or high water, the NCAA needs to have an NCAA tournament because it affects your soccer program, your field hockey program, track and field, volleyball, baseball, softball. If I'm any of those Olympic sport athletes, I am rooting on every day basketball gets played because those sport budgets are reliant on the big dance money. There's going to be a big dance this spring. You don't start something and not finish it. You do if it's so drastic like last year where you have literally no contingency plan in place for the first pandemic in a century. We know more about this virus now than we did then, and there's going to be an NCAA tournament.
So we're talking about the Duke one-and-done stuff and their early struggles. Have you watched much of this Kentucky team? And what are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I've watched a little bit of them. They can't shoot the three. I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to win if you can't shoot the three ball. I think Olivier Sarr's got to stay out of foul trouble. I think they need to involve him more. He's transferred from Wake Forest to average around a double-double. You've got experience. This isn't a one-and-done player. Yeah. They almost have to play a little bit less sexy to find themselves because that wins. That wins by finding – we are seeing – I will say this, Carter. You know when people say there's no more room for the traditional big in college basketball? Yet, if you have the traditional big and you use them the right way, you can win a game with that.
I was going to say, I don't necessarily agree with that because you have guys, especially coming to – yeah, because you come into Duke. Vernon Carey was a monster last year. Garrison Brooks was killer last year for Carolina, even on that soft team.
Great point. So for Kentucky, I think Devin Askew's a really good player. I almost think for the Wildcats, they have to slow down a little bit. They're making self-inflicted mistakes. Look what they did when they also put a trap on Notre Dame. They got back into the game. By virtue of being younger, being quick, being athletic, you might have to play a little bit faster, take some gambles a little bit, and defensively press up, I think, to try to see if you can find a mojo. Right now it comes off as Kentucky, like Duke, a team in the half court that doesn't have much of an identity. Sometimes the way to find that identity is by forcing turnovers and getting out on the break.
So I've asked you quite a few predictions so far, but I got one more. Who is your dark horse to win the tournament?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I will still sit here right now. Like, can I give you three tiers? I'm going to give you three tiers 100%. Briefly. So main tier, like top tier, I don't even think they're that big of a dark horse, but people will hear the school and they'll say, main tier would be Illinois because DeSumo and Cockburn are so good. And I expect the Illini to make a deep run and could win the national championship. But I don't think people think Gonzaga, Baylor, Iowa, maybe a blue blood. They don't think of Illinois. Illinois is loaded. They're as good as those teams. They really are. They didn't even play bad against Baylor. Baylor was just freakishly good. Middle tier. Because of the recent success, keep an eye on Michigan. I really like Hunter Dickinson, the freshman 7-footer. I think Eli Brooks, his ability to make plays. And how about Isaiah Livers? He's got great experience. He knows what it takes. Michigan, not long ago, that they were, in the Final Four with John Beilein. Juwan Howard's doing a really good job there. They could sneak up on some teams in the Big Ten. When you think Big Ten this year, you think Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois again. And you think Michigan State, Rutgers. Michigan kind of isn't getting a ton of pub. They could be a team that just kind of surprises people out of nowhere. And in my mid-major Cinderella story, if there is a Cinderella story, I am so high on them, have been for a while. I just love the way that Richmond and their makeup is. You're talking about a real balanced offense. Chris Mooney has found a defense and has always coached defense really well. Jacob Gilliard is a guard who creates for others. Grant Golden, a really good big. Richmond's got balance. They're very aware of who they are, and they have experience. The Spiders, watch out for them in March. I would not, if you see them in your region, you're going to cringe because they could be sitting in a regional final. And I would not want to go up against them. Even though they got blown out by West Virginia, I still really like the Spiders team in the long run.
Okay, so let's transition into play-by-play commentating. I'm sure you've met everybody in the business and whatnot. Who's the one guy you would want to call a game with?
Oh, Bill Raftery, without question.
Yeah.
In fact, right behind me, hold on, I've got a bobblehead of Bill right here, and it's got onions. Onions right
awesome.
there. Isn't that great? Love Bill. He's the best, and I would love to call a game with him. He is as great of a person as he is a broadcaster, and that would be a dream.
How do you think you would do with Bill Walton?
Amazing. I mean, you got to know what you're signing up for, and Jason Benetti did such a great job with him down in Nashville. It was just so fun. I would love to work with Walton. I know there's Walton, there's people who are like, this is annoying. I think it's fun. I think it's awesome. I would love to throw it down one time or a Walton story. I'm all in for that. I'd love to work with Bill Walton. Either Bill, Rafter Walton. Yeah. If it means I'm working with them, that's a bucket list.
So I have a bunch of UNC fans in my life, and they were pulling their hairs out hearing Bill Walton talk about the bike groups in Asheville and the volcanoes of Maui. 30 seconds left tied against Stanford.
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. But, you have to know what you're watching.
Exactly.
I know it's not going to be a traditional basketball telecast. If you're looking for that, you're going to have to watch it somewhere else or put the game on mute. But who doesn't like some fun? Everybody complains sometimes that college basketball isn't fun till March. At least with Walton, I know, expect the unexpected.
Oh yeah, when it's 11:30 on the East Coast, you turn on USC, Arizona State, and you can just listen to Bill Walton go crazy.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Absolutely, it's awesome. It is the best. You're right.
So anybody who follows you on Twitter knows you're a massive, massive Browns fan, and I have to ask, how are you feeling after Monday?
Good. Probably feeling as good about the Cleveland Browns as I ever have. The fight that they put up in that game is something that we really have not seen. Mm-hmm. And the way that game was played, it was probably the best game I've seen my Browns play in my lifetime. I mean, like the Titans' first half would be up there. But the way they fought back, Carter, they're down 2 touchdowns twice. They did not stop fighting back. And they showed a toughness, and they showed that they belong at the table with the NFL's best. Baker Mayfield has proved in the last 2 weeks that he can be the long-term option for this franchise. They needed to see him perform against some really good teams. He has done that. He has performed. And Kevin Stefanski has righted the ship of this franchise. He has been the head coach this franchise has so long needed. So I like the way that the Browns are playing. I think that they're a really interesting team. They have the most cap space in the NFL. They have no starter that's 30 or older, so they're a young team. They have the best running back duo in the league. Chubb and Hunt are unbelievable. And Peoples-Jones, Higgins, Jarvis Landry. This is without Odell Beckham, who I think would only enhance things. I don't buy the argument that he was holding the offense back. The Browns need to invest in defense. You give up 47 points to the Ravens, that's bad. Like the defense, we knew it was not good, but you can't be giving up that many points. And Lamar Jackson made it look easy against them. So there's concerns, but I feel good about where they are. They need to take care of business on Sunday night against the Giants. It's really a game. Cleveland is the better team. The Giants are going to be without Daniel Jones in all likelihood. Now they're going to be without Bradbury, their main cornerback.
Yeah.
So it's there for the taking for Cleveland on Sunday night. If they win, they're going to be going to the playoffs because they're not losing to the New York Jets.
No. No, there's no way. Stefanski has to be coach of the year, right? After these two Tomlin losses.
Yeah, and people say, well, yeah, who has he beaten? I mean, it's the NFL.
Yeah, no game is a guarantee at all.
No game's a guarantee. And the game against the Giants, I said except the Jets, yeah. The fact that Adam Gase has made it to this point, it benefits the Jets because they're actively tanking. But, my God, I mean, the fact he's getting paid by the New York Jets is just ridiculous. It's got George Costanza Yankees vibes. The Yankees were good.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, Adam Gase is just a puppet there, I guess.
He stinks. Yeah, he stinks.
Yeah, so last thing before we go, where do you see your Browns finishing in the playoffs, assuming they make it?
Well, I think that they're a team that, it depends on the matchup. You don't want to go to Kansas City.
Yeah.
If they're stuck going to Kansas City, they're not winning that football game. Their secondary is not good enough to contain the Chiefs receivers. They're eventually going to make a mistake on offense. You can't play it would take a valiant effort. They could go to Pittsburgh and win.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is struggling. They can compete with Baltimore, as we've seen. They beat Tennessee. I think that they could win a wild card round game. I can't see them in the AFC title game, but crazier things have happened. So I think I think they can pull off an upset. I think they're good enough to win a game in the postseason, and then we'll see how the bracket shakes out. But, for them to get back to the playoffs, Carter, they haven't been to the playoffs in 18 years. This is a huge step for them as an organization.
Who's the matchup you want if you're the Browns?
The matchup that I want? Well, I can't see them beating Tennessee in the same fashion that they beat them in. So, I get a little concerned about facing them again. But then again, I don't want to face the Steelers 2 weeks in a row because they're going to meet the Steelers week 17.
Yeah.
So if there's a matchup that I do want, I think Buffalo's really good. I don't know if that would fit for the Browns because I think the Buffalo defense could actually contain Cleveland's offense. Tennessee's the matchup I would want. I would want the Tennessee Titans, even though you're facing them again, you beat them. The Browns just match up well with them, and Tennessee has one of the worst defenses in the league against play-action passing. That's how the Browns have won. Sometimes it's just formulaic, and I think the Browns might have the formula to beat the Titans, 7 times out of 10. I just think that they're a team that matches up really, really well with Tennessee.
All right, man. Well, this was awesome. Thanks for the time. I know it was kind of short notice, but thanks again. Once again, go check out the Field of 68 podcast, Demetrius with a Splash of Fanta. John, thanks, man.
Carter, anytime. Happy to join you. Happy holidays to you and all your listeners.
You too, man. Stay safe out there.
Thanks.